Hello, I'm Shakina Tuahena, Deputy Editor of Mortgage Solutions. Welcome to today's Green Mortgage Masterclass in partnership with Lloyds Banking Group. This masterclass will cover how homeowners can retrofit their properties to be warmer and more sustainable, and what funding is available to make this happen. To discuss this, I'm joined by Rachel Buxton, Housing Development Manager, Sustainability at Lloyds Banking Group, and Gerard, Business Development Manager at Halifax Intermediaries and Scottish Widows Bank. Thank you both for being here. Before I hand over to them for the presentation, I want to remind everyone that there will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, so feel free to ask them during and after the session. Thank you, and I'll now pass on to Rachel.
Thanks, Shakina. So I'm Rachel Buxton. So I'm a Sustainability Manager within Intermediaries in Lloyds Banking Group, specifically working with Halifax Intermediaries and BM Solutions. So I look after everything that's green. So if it be green products, green propositions, and things like green regulation, particularly things like EPC and MEES. So if we just flick onto the next slide, I'm going to take you through today a deep dive of our Green Living Reward proposition, but I couldn't go past that point without just referencing the Warm Homes Plan, which obviously came in before after we started working on this presentation. So it's a really good segue into what we're doing with our proposition, really, because we've now got the policy certainty from government that we were needing. And it really supports our direction of travel, and the fact that it's now a universal offering to support the able to pay market. And that's what's really key for us. And we do have a clear strategy in Lloyds Banking Group about helping ensure that homes across the UK are warm, affordable and energy efficient. And we know that this is going to require collaboration between government, industry and society as a whole. So we do look forward to working together to mobilise the finance, innovation and partnerships needed to support more resilient and energy efficient homes. And the fast follower to this plan was the announcement of the Green Home Finance Strategic Partnership, which was announced between government and the Green Finance Institute. And we're sitting as Lloyds Banking Group on those focus groups within the partnership to support with the zero and low interest consumer loans commitment within the plan. I'm not going to mention MEES today because the Masterclass 2, I think it was 2 weeks ago, covered MEES brilliantly. So I'm not going to cover that. But this plan really segments into what we're doing, helping us move forward and really help us drive the propositions, of which I'm going to take you through today. So if we go to the next slide and we look at the headlines for our Green Living Reward. So Green Living Reward is a cashback reward of up to £2,000 for mortgage customers who implement energy efficient measures into their homes. We launched it in August 24 within the intermediary channel via a new digital journey within customers' apps. What we can see from the key achievements in 2025 alone is that over 3,000 customers have claimed a reward from us, and that's equal to us putting £3.4 million back into customers' pockets. The great piece for me is that 42% of the claims that have come through have been from customers who completed through the intermediary channel. So my role is to see how we can increase that 42% to get more money back into customers' pockets. So what we can see is that it's not surprising that solar panels have been the most popular. However, heat pump claims have been higher than we did anticipate, and they're more akin to the softer upgrades that you can see. But the boiler upgrade scheme, which provides the £7,500 off the installation, has really supported customers, because when you look at that £7,500 grant with a £2,000 cashback from Lloyds Banking Group and £100 bill credit on their Octopus account, that's over £9,500 that we're giving customers to install a heat pump, which is really great. The rates of installation do remain low, and that's reflected in national figures as well, since the eligibility of national grants was restricted in 2011. And one thing that we are doing with the reward is a free EPC after a successful claim. And I suppose the point to note is that a lot of providers out there do also do free EPCs, But what we can see is that the customers who claimed with us and used our free EPC, we can actually see that they've moved up on average over one EPC band, halving the number of EPC D to G ratings that have been provided. So if we just flip to the next screen, I'll just talk you through what we're going to go through today. So we're going to have an overview of what is the reward in more detail, how it works, how customers qualify, which customers it's for, and more detail about the free EPC. So if we go to the next slide. So this is where there's one of three rewards are available to customers. So up to £2,000 cashback for a heat pump, up to £1,000 cashback for solar panels and or a battery, and up to £500 for windows or insulation. You can see on the right hand side a list of the improvements and all the different cashback values that are available. One thing to point out that with windows, it's from single glazing to double or triple. It's not for someone who's doing retrofitting double glazing to double glazing. And customers can claim one of the three rewards. So if we just move over to the next slide. What you'll find with Green Living Reward is that it doesn't source on sourcing systems, and that's because it's available and open to all applications that have come into us since the 31st of July 2024. So if it be a mortgage application, remortgage, further advance or product transfer, everybody would qualify as long as the application is after that date. Customers do need to have a Halifax current account, or we do accept a Bank of Scotland account in Scotland. And then a customer would have 12 months to make the eligible home improvement and make the claim to us. And they would do that by signing into the Green Living Journey, where they can go through the full process. So if we just go through to the next slide. This is now what we can, I thought it was important to show you what a customer's viewpoint is and how easy it is for a customer to go through this process. So customers will receive an offer from us at offer stage, and that's to confirm to them that they will be eligible for the Green Living Reward. And we give them the link, which takes them into this Green Living Journey. They can register at any point within the 12 months. But what's happening as we go through the journey is customers can find out more about the reward. They can check their eligibility within there. They can receive reminder emails if they wish to, and they can upload their invoices and receipts for completed works. They can submit the claim, track its progress, and we do allow a guaranteed 2-month extension just in case there's any delays with suppliers or partners. So as you can see, it takes you through help with partners as well if customers do need that. And we're at the point now where we're going to submit the claim, and this is to show how easy it is to do doc upload. So in this case, a biomass pellet boiler, which we have had one of those installed down in Essex. They've used a government grant, and we're now going to upload the receipt. So it is just as simple as choosing it from your gallery, add in, upload, and then you'll get your T's and C's to agree. And then it will take you back through a summary just to confirm the selections that you've put in, just to make sure that there's no errors. And then that's when you can track actually from there. You know that you're eligible, you've submitted your claim. Then once you've received your reward, you would go in there for your free EPC. And there's options there. If you need help with any of the different installations, you can go and use our partners. So if we just go to the next screen. And that's where there is some extra help that comes in from Halifax. So we know that it can be a daunting process for customers to know where to start with, particularly trusted installers. So that's why we've teamed up with Effective Home for solar, batteries and insulation, and Octopus Energy for heat pumps. So, but customers are under no obligation to use our installers. They can use their own, although there are benefits of using the providers that we've teamed up with, such as a £100 bill credit on their Octopus Energy bill, or a £750 discount on all solar and battery packages for Halifax customers. So there's definitely incentives there for customers to use our partners. If we just go to the next screen. And this is where the EPC, free EPC comes in. And this is helping us to understand with our back book as well that the changes that have been made are having the desired impact on EPCs. So the customer will receive an email confirmation about the successful reward and get the cashback payment, at which point they will get the link to go to the eServe booking page to get that appointment booked in for the new EPC. And the customer has 3 months from when they've had the successful claim to schedule in that assessment. And then obviously that will then get loaded onto the government database once it's been completed. So if we just go to the next screen. Now, what's really important is the piece around grants is that I think we just need to click again to get the round side up. Perfect. So with the boiler upgrade scheme, this is the most popular that's out there, I'd say at the minute as a national scheme. That's the £7,500, up to £7,500, which is going down really well, and it has been extended within the Warm Homes Plan to 2030. So that's some great reassurance. There's the Nest scheme in Wales that looks after Wales residents, and there's the new Warm Homes local grant that was in the Warm Homes Plan. That is more around there's eligibility around EPC requirement and income requirements. But what I'd just say is that anybody that you know is doing any upgrades or improvements, check out local authority websites and government websites to see if customers could get a grant to help them in what they're doing. Our partners, I know, will take customers through the process as well, particularly with the boiler upgrade scheme with Octopus to help customers through that journey. But as you can tell with my accent, probably, I'm from Yorkshire. So if there's any money that anybody can get to help them finance these things, it's use them and make sure that customers know about them. So if we just go to the next slide. So this is one piece is that we've mentioned that customers might be daunted about knowing which installers to choose, who they can trust. But actually, if we take that step back, they might not fully understand where they should start on this journey about making improvements. What should they do first? What's connected to each other? So we've also partnered with the Energy Saving Trust with our home energy savings tool. Now, this is the current version, but we're shortly will be launching a newer version that's got more tech integrated into it with APIs to actually give us more specific results with the customer having to input less detail. So as you can see at the moment, we're asking questions around the property so that we can start to formulate an action plan for a customer. And it's really designed around, does a customer want to reduce their energy bills or do they want to improve their EPC rating? And they can put a budget in as to what they need to work to. And the action plan itself will then work on that basis. It can be added to, it can be amended. But it will take a customer through as well things like what else they can do in a certain particular area, and it will give more suggestions around potential like impacts of, well, if you do this work, do you know how noisy it's going to be? Do you know how intrusive it's going to be? And suggesting that if you do this particular item, I would do this item at the same time to just help with that convenience for a customer. So the plan itself generates a code for the customer, and that code can then be used if they want to go back in and make any changes to it and review it at a later date. So that's pretty much what I was going to go through, and I think I've given you the theory today. This is what our proposition is. This is the great parts about it and how we can get customers into money back into our customers' pockets. But I'm going to hand over to Gerard next, because Gerard is actually if I'm the theory, he's the in practice. He's gone through this journey. So he's a colleague and he's a customer, and he can give us the how it feels, what it's actually like, and what results he's seen. So let me hand over to you, Gerard, to give us the lowdown.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I think if we can have the next slide, please. I think it says here, my title slide saying my journey began in October 2024 is a bit disingenuous, actually, because I started looking at things in March of 2024. And I had my first few quotes from installers looking at doing solar and batteries. I wanted to reduce my reliance on the grid, and I wanted to see if I could cut my energy costs while improving the EPC rating of my property that I moved in 2010 and done a fair bit of work inside too in terms of insulation and heating systems and double glazing. So I started in March 2024 looking at the systems, about what I wanted, how much it was going to cost, and the battery and solar installation I went for was going to cost me just over £11,600, just over a few quid. And then in October 24, by the time the installer could get round to fitting me into their schedule, the great news is that actually the package I wanted had come down in cost, and I could get an additional battery. So instead of having 5.8 kilowatts of battery storage, I went to 11.6. So if you go to the next slide. So my batteries, I had a couple of batteries put in. They live in the back corridor, and they've probably, in terms of the impact, they probably had the biggest impact on anything in terms of storing low-cost electricity overnight, low-cost energy overnight. I should add that I also drive an electric vehicle, fully electric vehicle for work, and I'll show you some numbers in a second that talk about the costs that I have going out. So all of my, I try not to charge out on the road. I charge at home every day. And in terms of my mileage, you can see the impact it is. My mileage over the last 2 years is I've done just shy of 73,000 miles in the electric car in the last 2 years. So if you move to the next slide, I think it's important to see what that investment that I put in to the property. So next slide, if I could, please. So the investment I put in was £10,400, being absolutely honest, 10,400, which gave me 16 440 watt panels on the roof, so just under 7 kilowatts of power, and then I've ended up with 11.6 kilowatts of storage. You can see 24 numbers versus 25, and that is also including my car charging. So my net electric costs over the year, once I take into the income that I generated from the solar panels, I've gone from 2,500 as near as just to about £600. It's the saving is crazy. If you're just looking at it on a purely how much money I have saved by doing this installation, the money not leaving my bank account is massive. As I said, that includes my car charging as well. I wanted to point out something on the back end of, if you look at November and December from 24 to 25, you'll start seeing my energy costs creeping up. And that's primarily to do with the fact that I'm trying to change the heating system in my home to a different style of heating, but I'll talk about that and it's slightly different. But it's had a massive impact in terms of my financial outlay. I'm also very fortunate I get some mileage back from work. So my payback at the moment for my entire system is currently on about 3.8 years. Next slide. The other thing that has changed very definitely is that I work for a bank. I've got a staff mortgage, and as part of that, they have to get it valued, physically valued. My previous provider was NatWest, and I was going to do something with them in the September of 24, decided not to, and I looked at starting to remortgage back to Halifax in the February of 25. So I actually had exactly the same valuer that came out from eServe in September 24 and in February 25. And the only thing that had changed in my property was the solar and battery. So yes, I'd spent 10,500 putting it in, but there's been a 40,000 uplift. And if you look at my index linked valuation of going up, actually that stayed in line with pretty much national average is now. So I've outstripped, if you're looking at property growth, if that's a great thing for you to be into, I think it's just reassuring for me that actually I know that I've invested in my property and I'm getting it back on several different levels. I'm getting back monthly, I'm getting it back in the value of my property. And the valuers comments are really quite interesting in terms of that solar and batteries. It used to be people having a great kitchen and a bathroom were the best on the street, and then it would go to who had a conservatory on the back, or a loft extension, or a resin driveway. And his view was very definitely solar and batteries and energy efficiency in properties will now make properties the best in street. I'm not saying mine is the best in the street, but it's certainly helped up its value. Next slide. So in October of 2025, I completed on my Halifax remortgage, came back to Halifax, and at that point decided I'd take an impact of the Green Living Reward and I'd put another battery in. The battery cost me 1,300 quid. And I completed on the 3rd of October. The 6th of October, my friendly electrician came and installed the battery for me. You'll see a nice little concrete base there that I made. I'm very chuffed with my handiwork there. That's the only thing I did do on the installation. But they came, they put another battery in, hooked it all up. And then I put my claim in on the Green Living Reward, and 3 days later, £1,000 dropped back into my Halifax current account. Thank you to Halifax for doing that for me, but met all the conditions of the Green Living, extra battery, thanks very much. I often get asked how big are the batteries and how cumbersome they are. So the Coke can is purely there to represent the size of the batteries. They don't take up very much space, and I chose to have the first two installed inside because I had the space. It wasn't quite enough space to put the third one, so the third one lives just outside. And that is the latest upgrades that I've done. Next slide. So the Green Living Reward, as I said, I put my claim in, really seamless, uploaded the invoice that I'd paid, and then the Green Living Reward was paid within a number of days to me. The good thing about that is that I moved into my property in 2010. And when I moved into my property, it didn't have any heating system. Oddly, it had cavity wall insulation, but no loft insulation. Didn't have fully double glazed, and it certainly didn't have a modern heating system or solar or batteries. So if you can move to the next slide. So the wider impacts, what's it done? So when I moved in, this is a copy of my EPC when I moved in, sitting beautifully in F grade. Very happy that I was at the time, and with the potential that if I did some work that I might be able to get it to an E. So beginning of February, I had my EPC assessor come out to my property, and I will now reveal what happened. If you go to the next slide. And so I've moved my property from an F to a B by doing the work that we've done in terms of loft insulation, some different double glazing, newer double glazing, and heating system, more efficient heating system, but most importantly, the solar and batteries. I think it's really important to call out on this, that this is now going to have a long-term knock-on effect. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, because every time if I'm looking to remortgage, or do anything on my property where I can go to a mortgage product that's got a cashback on it, I will still getting it now because I'm in the top end of A or B. There's a couple of little tweaks I might do to see if I can sneak it to an A, but I'm not sure that's going to be possible for my 1969 bungalow, but we'll see. But it's had a massive impact clearly on the money that I'm spending on my property. If you go to the next slide, talk about what's happening next. What's happening next is really crucial for me, and that's where if I think about the slides I said about highlighting the November and the December of 24 against 25, a little bit of an uplift. Currently, my heating system is an oil boiler. I live in the middle of nowhere. We don't have mains gas. And so I'm moving the property towards electric heating. So I think probably very shortly another battery will go in. But the increase in cost is because I'm using my oil boiler less to heat my home, and I've started using electric heating. So some of the rooms, my office I'm in now has got an electric heater rather than having to use the central heating to heat the whole house. I just heat the room I'm in. And then I'm also looking, if you see in this picture, I'm looking at infrared heating as well. So we're making sure that I can use my electricity that I've stored overnight and heating my home with that rather than having to burn oil. Also investigating air source heat pumps. When I did my remortgage, I've actually done a 2-year and a 5-year at the same time because the government hadn't announced then that they were going to change the end date for the air source heat pump boiler upgrade scheme. So it was scheduled in to go for December 2027, but that's now moved forward to a later date. So I've got a bit more time to think about whether I'm going to do an air source heat pump. I think the biggest thing for me to kind of recap and finish off is it was really quick and easy to do. It's been a game changer in terms of the money leaving my bank account on a monthly basis. My energy usage has gone down, and because I'm storing and not having to draw from the grid. But primarily, it's put value on my house as well. And actually, it's pretty cool that I'm not having to burn as much fossil fuels. So that's my journey. I've used Halifax Green Living Reward by remortgaging back and making a successful claim, and then I've managed to get my property from an F to a B. So yeah, that's me. That's my journey. I guess we now move to any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping that everyone watching found that informative, and it's a good real life example from Gerard helped to paint a picture of how it can really help. So we will now move on to questions, and just another reminder that there is still a chance to ask them. So actually I wanted to go to Rachel first with this one. Does it count if a client wants to install solar before a remortgage? Because I guess the best time to have a conversation will be at the point of refinance, but what if it happens in between that?
So the eligibility on a remortgage is that the install has to happen after the mortgage has completed. Slightly different story if it's an existing customer who's coming to us with a product transfer or a further advance. We do allow a period of time before that completion happens, but on a remortgage, it has to happen after completion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I think Gerard might have some insight into this, but does the battery storage on its own, is that fine?
Absolutely, yeah. You don't have to do solar and batteries. There's a misconception that you need to do solar and batteries at the same time. To be fair, if I had my time again, I would have probably put batteries in years ago because they have made the biggest impact. Storing cheap rate electricity off at night, a bit like the old Economy 7. Those of us who are a bit old enough to remember Economy 7. It does that with off-peak electric. So you do your batteries first and then do your solar. I did my solar and batteries at the same time, but I probably would have done the batteries first and then waited until the spring for the solar going forward. But yeah, no, you can do it either way. And if you do it as a separate transaction, then you can claim twice on the Green Living Reward if you do 2 different transactions with us.
Thanks.
By doing a PT or... Yep.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And there are a couple of questions about the eligibility in regards to having an account with Halifax. So is it right that a client needs a Halifax current account to claim or qualify? And can they open one? Separate question, can they open one when organising the upgrade?
Yeah, so it's actually within the journey within the app. So it only needs to be opened at the time ready for when the claim is coming in to be successful. There's no need for a customer to switch their banking to us. So that doesn't have to happen. It's either a Halifax account or a Bank of Scotland in Scotland, so that we've got the mechanism to make that payment into an account.
Okay, thank you. Hope that answers that question. And does the reward cover brown upgrades as well as green? So, for example, gas boiler upgrades.
So the only things it will cover are the things on the list, which are air source, biomass, replacing glazing, so not replacing double glazing for double glazing, but taking it from single to double glazing or triple glazing, and solar and batteries and insulation.
Great, thank you. And another question is asking, why is it not allowed to replace old double glazing windows with new? Surely that's an efficiency. And there's another point about that there's been no sun in the last month, which has had an impact. And I'd actually quite a few points there. So actually first, if you could just answer why it's not allowed to replace old double glazing windows with new.
I think that's more just around eligibility criteria that we put in when we went live in August 2024. So we do look at different like tweaks and amendments that we need to make, but at this moment in time we're focused on getting the properties that are single glazed up to double.
In terms of there's not been very much sun and batteries, I think that's probably where my batteries have become even more useful to me, because yes, I'm not generating the income, although actually in the past 2 weeks there has been some sun, and I'm starting to see even this week a couple of brighter days. I'm down in Cornwall. If anyone's seen the weather down in Cornwall, we've had more rain than sunshine. I think 50 days of rain that we've had so far this year. But my batteries, that's where the batteries have taken in. I'm still harvesting and holding on to cheap rate electricity from overnight. I use my energy provider. Other energy providers are available, but I do use Octopus because of my car charging, and my unit rate's 7p a unit overnight. So it's cheap to cook my Sunday roast. I feel quite smug about that when I'm cooking my Sunday roast with my electric cooker from my batteries. Yeah.
Amazing. There's some sunshine for the gloomy days that we've had. And is the EPC rating part of the eligibility?
No, not at all. So it could be like Gerard's example, an F property. It could be someone in a C-rated property, or it could even be someone who's actually already in a B-rated property. It might be a new build where the developers installed PV solar, but the customer then wants to go further to get the battery storage to harness that power. So all EPCs are accepted.
I spoke with a mortgage broker yesterday who's got a client that's already made a claim with us, and they're coming back to do a further advance to do some extra bits and pieces on their property, and they're going to make a subsequent claim, and they're already an A-rated property. So it makes no difference, their EPC. It's a reward for the action.
Of course. And actually kind of following on from that, just about this sort of advice process, when would you say is the best time for an advisor to, suggest that their client considers this if they seem open to it, or even if they don't, when should the best time be to bring it up?
That's a great question. In terms of advice process, thankfully I'm not involved in our advice process. However, the earlier it can be brought into a conversation, and you're linking that to if a client's already got an A or a B rated property, there are cashbacks available, and that's that bit about the gift that keeps on giving. That it's that person's, if they've already got an A or a B, just because they have, doesn't mean they're not eligible. And it's talking really just understanding what clients' needs and wants are, and if you can see. I think that this is a personal thing, but I think if you see the direction of travel, that EPC reports will have a bearing on how much people can borrow. With Halifax, if you've got an A or a B, we can lend you more than if you've got an F or a G. So it does make an impact, and the earlier that can be brought in, and the earlier the clients have got the opportunity to make a decision about which direction are we going in, and actually is one of these green living rewards beneficial to them, I think is far better to have that earlier in a conversation than it is later.
And I think there's some clear, like, obvious places in conversations where if those conversations are not happening now, it's just a few added extras. So I'd say remortgage with additional borrowing for home improvements, further advances with additional borrowing for home improvements. Those extra questions of, well, what home improvements are you doing? Because actually that can unlock up to £2,000. And I think what we're seeing is the amount of money that we're now paying back to customers who are making these changes. Customers are really interested, and customers are doing these practices of getting their homes more energy efficient. So actually it's just unlocking within the fact find around what is the EPC rating, what are their intentions? Are they going to be doing any home improvements? But what we find is that on average, a customer who's completed, it's 4.8 months for them to then claim on the actual green living reward. So there's obviously intent in customers' minds that they're starting that process, because like we saw with Gerard's example of when he started with getting the quotes to then actually getting installs, it's a process that can take customers months and months to get to the position they're in. So it's that conversation of what are they doing and what improvements are they making to the house.
It's a really interesting one as well about product transfers. I've got a huge number of brokers who've got clients that have claimed on product transfers, because once the brokers made them aware of the Green Living Reward, they were staying with the Halifax. It's an extra add-on, and actually it's almost like the straw that breaks the camel's back. They've been thinking about doing solar, been thinking about doing their source heat pump or batteries or doing some extra insulation. Actually, knowing they're going to get that reward, it makes it then a no-brainer. Actually, I will now invest in it and I will then move my property forward.
Of course, and actually to kind of follow on from that, how can an advisor help a client to figure out which moves to do first, whether it's boiler upgrade or the windows? Like, obviously there's a tool that you do have, but what other ways can you determine that as well?
I think the starting point would be, if it's someone starting from scratch, definitely the home energy savings tool, because it's from an independent partner, the Energy Saving Trust, and that's the starting point to understand what that property actually needs to be what installs need to be done in that particular property to actually achieve what the customer is motivated by. Because is it to reduce the energy bills, or is it to improve the EPC rating? Because the plan itself will work towards the customer's budget as well, to fulfill what the customer wants and is capable to do. So that is definitely the starting point, because then that can lead into the conversation of, well, with these partners there that can help, and we've got partners that take you through the process and handhold all the way through. Or like in Gerard's case, he knows his Aleke that could come and do his battery. It's there. If you know someone, fantastic. If you don't and you're struggling to get an installer, we've got partners that are there ready made for customers to use.
Of course, thank you. And Gerald, do you have any sort of insight into how you decided what steps to take, or how that process was for you?
So clearly, I work in a bank that's quite focused on this. I just wanted to go through a process of seeing, actually, I saw what difference it made. I think maybe the trigger for me, I saw what trigger it made on me having an electric car as opposed to a diesel car, and the amount of money I wasn't paying to fill a tank. So my electric car costs about £5 to fill, and then I had the thought process, well, if it's costing me £5 to fill, I'm running a diesel car every day because I've got an oil boiler at home. So actually, can I make a switch? And actually then, by having the solar and the batteries put in, it made then my car charging cheaper, but made running my household cheaper. It then had the impact of clearly increasing the value of my property on the view of a surveyor, and then it had the impact of changing the EPC rating. So I think for me, it was the electric car that drove the change, to get my mindset to think, if that's what electric's costing, how do I move towards that goal? And solar and batteries were the obvious choice.
And that's a really good point, because that's what we're now starting to see with all the rich data that we're now getting, is actually that the electric car is the catalyst for customers wanting to make change and go into solar and batteries first. And we can then see an onward step into heat pumps and further things. So actually, questions might be around if you're doing your budget planning with your customer, and if their electric car comes up, you've got I suppose an in there with an electric car. How do they power that electric car? Because I'd like to think that people, even if it's then helping with, have you not thought about an energy provider that gives you overnight cheaper rates? do we know that customers with electric cars, hopefully they're not stuck on just a standard tariff and they're paying a large amount of money? But we don't know that, and that's where the conversation comes in to help get them the energy bills down.
That's really interesting that it might be starting from outside the home, actually, and other changes that might seem less intensive than retrofitting a home. I do have another question. Can a client claim for more than one improvement?
Absolutely. It's linked to the transaction. So if when I remortgaged on a 2-year and a 5-year. I've made a claim now, and in 2 years' time, when I have my element come up for a product transfer, I could make another claim if I'm doing a different improvement. So there is a thought process of, do I do an air source heat pump? And that would then mean I had the £1,000 for my batteries, and then £2,000 for my heat pump when that goes in, if that goes in. So in a 2-year period, it'd be a £3,000 cashback. And then in 3 years' time after that, when my 5-year piece comes to an end, I could do another piece, whether I wanted to improve the insulation in my property, or I actually shouldn't admit this, but above that picture of the batteries is a little window which is single glazed still. So whether or not I change that, or I look at some other putting triple glazing in and improving that, who knows? But yeah, you can, as long as you're doing a transaction that's completed, then you can actually then go through and do more multiple claims.
And I think a great point on that one is that this is what we're seeing, is that customers are doing it in parts, not going in for a full house retrofit all in one go, because aspect the cost and the how disruptive it would be. But if a customer was doing everything at once, so let's say they installed solar heat pump and they had more insulation, and they did that on the back of completing on a mortgage, they would only be able to claim for one element. And if they would claim for the heat pump, because that gives you £2,000. So if they've done everything all in one go, you can only claim once. But if it's a staged approach and there's a mortgage, a product transfer, a further advance, each time it opens up that new window for a new claim.
Great, thank you. And does the Green Living Reward appear in sourcing?
No, so that's because it's basically it's universal and open to everybody. It's not part of a product. It's I suppose icing on top of the cake with a cherry on top. It's open to all.
Right. And is eligibility from application date or completion?
So the eligibility is from the mortgage application must have come in after the 31st of July 2024. But then the actual reward period opens up for the 12 months on completion.
Okay, thank you. And those are all the questions that we do have time for. And thank you for the great insight and conversation around this and just explaining a bit more. So I'm hoping that everyone watching found some use of that. And there will be now a QR code on your screen. If you could just please, everyone watching, scan that to give us some feedback on our masterclass so that we can figure out what we're doing right and what we can improve on. But again, thank you both for presenting, and thank you to everyone watching, and I hope you all have a good rest of the day.